Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Baby Playtime. I'm here today and I'm going to be showing you how to make your very own baby sensory mat. So you're going to need a few things for this. You can use a foam board that you can find at the dollar store or you can find at the craft store. Let me show you my example here that I have. So I have a foam board here that just happened to be in this shape right over here. You're also going to need some sensory items. I've used some felt, I've used some foil, I have some yarn that I've put on over here, and I've also added a pom-pom. You can also use different sensory that's going to stimulate your baby. So here I have some textures here, some plastic spikes that your baby can touch, and I also added some ribbon. So those are some examples of some materials that you can use, but the materials that you use for your baby play mat, sensory mat, is up to your discretion, and also it depends on your baby's age. So if your baby is still between infant to 6 months old, the things that you use for your sensory mat might be different compared to what you might be using for your baby once they start crawling or once they get into the toddler age. So let me explain a little bit of what and why I put the things on my baby sensory mat. So over here, of course, you always want to use soft textures. You're going to be placing this on the floor or on the carpet in your house so your baby can lay on it and feel and touch all the different sensories that are on the mat. Of course, when your baby starts crawling, it's going to be exploring even more. So first things first, what I did was I made sure that the mat has a lot of softness to it. Because your baby's going to be touching it, it's very important to make sure it's safe. So always, of course, as we always say, adult supervision. But I think that felt is a great way to add some softness to your board. If you have some carpet, sometimes you're doing some renovations. If it's a clean piece of carpet, you can add it on. Now, I hot glued everything on here, so it's very simple. And I also made sure that the things that I used on this baby play mat are things that I can change it up as your baby grows older. So the first thing that I had from some craft that I had left behind was some ribbon. So notice that I put two different sides on it, the slippery side and the matte side. And I did this because it has two different textures. You want your baby to be able to explore as many different textures as possible because this is going to spark their curiosity. I've also made it so that the ribbons hang off of the mat a little bit. So when it's placed like this on the floor, your baby, if it's off of the mat, it has the ability to pull onto the ribbons. So this is great because they'll be practicing their grip, and a lot of different skills will be ignited while they're on the mat. I've also added some different types of yarn. So this is a little bit thicker yarn. I've added it on again to the end of the board, just like the ribbon, because you want the ability for your baby to be able to pull and tug. It's a lot of problem solving for your baby. So your baby's going to be learning a lot of different textures, a lot of problem solving of what happens when I pull onto this. So this is an example that I used, just some thicker yarn. Over here, I put on some cotton. Now, this isn't your traditional cotton that you use in the bathroom. However, you can use any kind of cotton you want. This happens to be the stuffing that you use for crafts or sewing. I thought it was great because you can get it in bigger quantities, and it also sticks on better to the mats with hot glue rather than the small cotton balls that you get in the bathroom. So if you do want to add something like cotton, you might want to try something such as this. So it's just a big ball of fluffiness that your baby can touch and feel. And again, I put it on the base mat of the felt. Another thing that I added onto this mat is I also added some different colorful items. So this, I have some sea animals on here. I have a turtle, I have an octopus, and I kept it plain just for an example because of that you can add anything onto this. So it's up to you what you'd like to add on as a sensory, or you can keep it plain. It's great to add things like this because even if it's not anything that that has such a tactile thing to touch, you are going to be using your vocabulary with your baby. So you want to encourage talking about what they're doing or what they're touching. I see you found the turtle. The turtle is green, and this is vocabulary that as they get older, they're obviously going to learn. The more vocabulary that you use with your baby as they're exploring, the more that it's going to soak in with them, and it's going to expand their communication skills and their vocabulary as well. So over here, I have some yarn. I put it over here where they can touch it, and it's firmly on. So I wanted to make sure as well that there's no way that it's going to come off of the board because you don't want it to obviously go into their mouths where it can be a choking hazard. I also added here a pom-pom, and I added a little rope on top of it so that they have the ability to pull it as well. You want to make it as interactive as possible for your baby. So if they're touching things, if they have the ability to pull on it, to tug at it, that's great learning opportunity for them. Another thing that I added on was some foil. I just cut it into the shape of a heart, but you can also do a sensory mat with a bigger portion of foil. I've also seen some people make it with some bubble wrap. A lot of kids of any age love playing with that, so it's definitely going to spark a lot of curiosity with your baby if you have that bubble wrap and they're trying to pop it. And then in the middle here is an activity that we have posted before, and I believe Miss Michaela has shown us how to make a sensory bag. So I just added a simple one here in the middle. I used baby oil for this as well as food coloring, and you can change it up as you go. So you can peel it off when you want to change it up for your baby. I also suggest if you're going to do a sensory bag on the mat, keep it seasonal so that they can learn different things. So you can put in some feathers in here. You can put in some colorful fall leaves for the fall season. So you can always change it up. So let me just show you what it looks like from afar. Whoops. So there we go. And then as you can tell, I kept it really colorful because as your baby gets a little bit bigger, when your baby grows into a toddler, you can go over the colors with your baby. I see blue, I see orange, I see yellow. And if you noticed over here, I also added a little hook at the top of my baby mat. So when your baby is not crawling yet, of course, you're going to be putting this on the floor just like this, so that your baby can explore on top of it. Once your baby starts crawling, it's going to be able to use the activities of tugging and pulling at things. But I added a hook because once your baby becomes a toddler, what you can do is you can hook it on to their level. I don't know if you can see that there, to their level, so that once they start standing, they can also use the sensory board and still explore, and then you can of course change it up. One suggestion that I would do once your baby gets a little bit older, once your baby is a toddler, even a preschooler, you can totally extend this activity, add some zippers, you can add some locks that you find at the hardware store. Of course, you might have to change up the material of the board if you need something stronger to hold those sensory items and developmental items that they can play with. So let's look at why this is beneficial for babies. So baby playmats are very essential to babies as they're growing from the time they're infants to the time that they're bigger. Some of you may have some baby playmats that have been given to you as a gift, or that the ones that you can buy at the store. But we like to promote the ones that you can make at home because they're just as beneficial for babies. So one of the options that you can use it for, of course, is tummy time. Tummy time, they are promoting curiosity and wonder, and you're stimulating your baby's senses. So when they're doing tummy time, they're getting some neck strengthening, and they're also learning cause and effects. Your baby's going to be learning what happens when I touch the yarn, what happens when I tug the string on it. So even though you might think, well, my baby's a little young, I don't know if they're going to understand what they're doing, but they're definitely learning even at that young age. And it also not only boosts cognitive development, but when they're playing with a baby playmat, they're also developing hand-eye coordination and fine and gross motor skills. Now, the reason why I also say motor skills is that as your baby gets bigger and your baby is crawling, it's going to be kicking its legs and kicking its feet, and some of these activities is what's going to stimulate it. So that's why it's a great way to promote both fine and gross motor skills. Now, lastly, it also provides countless stimulation for your baby and exerts independence. So while you're observing your baby and watching your baby, you're going to see how independent your baby is, and you're going to be surprised at how curious these kind of mats are going to spark for them. Now, another thing that I suggest that you can do with your baby play mats is to add a mirror. Of course, make sure it's safe and that it doesn't have the ability to be broken while it's on the floor. You can also hold it up with your baby, as we had done a few weeks before for mirror play, but you can also add one of those when you're adding your baby play mats. Now, in a few weeks, I'm going to be showing you an extension of this baby playmat. I'd love to see any DIY baby playmats that you might make at home. And I'd love to hear your ideas and suggestions if you have anything that you've made at home. I love to also see what you guys make when it comes to your baby being an infant to a toddler to growing up to be a preschooler, because sensory play is always very important to your child at any age. I want to thank you for joining me for another baby playtime, and we'll see you again next Thursday. Bye.